Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Blackstone Fortress podcast. Cue fake applause. Yay! I'm not actually going to edit an applause, but I'm going to make that joke every time, I think, because it's funny for me.
Fake applause.
We're here with the whole crew. We got everybody this week. It's exciting.
5 men.
We're just normal men. I can't help but reference that meme every single time. We've got Coda, we've got Ryan, we've got Mark, we've got Nate. We're back to discuss all things 40K. So we were having a little bit of a conversation before recording went live. And you guys were talking about some of the competitive lists from last weekend, and I think that's probably a decent place to get started.
All right. Well, first I'm going to hijack this because I asked permission and I was told I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that I've talked to that is new to the hobby is hesitant to go into the competitive scene. It's daunting. It's scary. What if you don't know your rules? What if you go up against that guy? All that other stuff.
What if I am that guy?
Exactly, and I guess we should explain what that guy is for brand new people. That guy is the person that takes the fun out of the sport, out of the hobby, out of the everything.
Yeah, capital T, capital G, win at all costs.
And my story today involves that guy. So I have it on good authority, but I can't confirm it. So I'm not going to name names or places. I'm just going to say I was told by someone that I trust that an event happened last weekend, and it was a small town event, a 32-person roundtable tournament. Not huge, not anything, not a grand tournament, just casual fun.
Yeah.
And so happened that one of the people there was a brand new to the hobby. Also happened to be on the younger side, 15, 16, had to get his mom to drive him to the store type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where we all began somewhere.
Well, it starts off his first game. He's playing that guy, and people start to take notice. He's getting bullied at the table, and not bullied by being put down, because I don't think anybody in our community is that offensive to your face.
At least not the ones that show up in person.
Exactly. But not letting him have time to look up his rules, not letting him have time to read effects, just rolling over him type thing. And just crushed him. As you would. If you don't know your rules, you don't know your stuff, how are you supposed to perform?
Right.
So he's a bit distraught. The next 2 games he plays, ends up paired up against people who are regulars to the store. And this is where the story takes a turn. The first game, they play all 5 rounds. I'm assuming he's losing. I don't know the scores or anything, but I'm assuming he's losing because he's new and it's unlikely you're going to win many games at the beginning.
Yes.
Just before the end of the 5th round, his opponent concedes. And competitive, conceding gives the person who wins a 100-point score.
Mm-hmm. Right, okay.
And so they play 5 rounds. The kid wins by a technicality.
Okay.
Second game, they go 5 rounds. Again, person concedes.
Okay.
Kid wins by a technicality, but another 100-point score. In his first tournament, after having probably the worst game he's ever had for his entry game into the tournament scene, he places 3rd because the other 2 competitors realize it's not about winning games all the time.
That's awesome.
That is an excellent feel-good story.
That is neat. Very nice.
Good guy, regular.
And so, I wanted to tell that story because it is very important to me that people, old and new, understand the competitive scene is for everybody. It's not just for people who have to win. Because at the end of the day, nobody has to win. It's a hobby. It's a game.
It's in the game.
So now we'll go into the winners of the weekend.
Well, I mean, we like to call them the bests and worst, right?
The
So
Weekend Warriors.
that is an entirely different demographic. I'm not sure that we're getting into that.
What is that for? I'll look it up.
Reserves, National Guard type thing, I think.
Yeah.
Really?
I suppose
Yeah.
that depends where you're from. It might be like a local slang.
Uh,
But yeah, no. So what we had kind of discussed when we were planning the podcast is you guys were gonna kind of give a rundown of a subsection of the factions from last weekend's tournament results, and kind of I think this week the idea is to kind of go over the best of the best and see who did what and the factions that came out on top and some notable tournament winning lists and that kind of stuff. So I will pass it to you guys to break it down.
all right. Well, I'm going to pass it off to Ryan to talk about the actual factions, because I think that he is, I'll say, more passionate on the fluff side than I am.
Okay.
I like things that hit hard. He likes things that make sense lore wise.
This is true. Or do we want to go through them all, or do we want to sort of hit them individually?
I think we'll hit them individually.
Trade off. Okay,
Uh,
where do you want to start then? Who's top? Who's
well,
top of the round?
so right now, the win that I would say is top was a sisters list that won the Leeds 40K Super Major. The Super Major is a 219 person tournament in England that happened last weekend.
Oh my god.
Dang, Shouty.
How many days is that
So-
event?
It'd be a grand tournament, so 2 days,
Jeez.
5 rounds. So, anyways, I will pass it off to Ryan to explain who the sisters are, because they're actually not called the sisters.
Yeah, so yeah, for starters, they're not called the sisters anymore. Ever since they got what feels like recent classic update, but probably not that recent anymore.
Wasn't it 8?
I think it was 8th, somewhere in there, probably. I don't know what year that was, to be honest.
What year is it?
I don't know, maybe like 2017, 2018, something like
Yeah,
that.
that's about right.
Anyway, the formerly known as the Sisters of Battle, now referred to as the Adepta Sororitas, more lore accurate to the universe. They are Warhammer's nuns with guns. Everybody loves their flavor of nuns with guns, and Warhammer has the grimdark ones. They are, hilariously enough, being named the Adepta Sororitas, a sorority of warrior nuns.
Crazy.
They are basically raised from birth to venerate the Emperor of the Imperium of Mankind,
Praise
to
be.
have absolute faith in his divinity, and funnily enough, they just so happen to be able to perform miracles
Praise
because of this. They love to say praise be, and then they love to set people who don't echo that on fire. Yeah, they're like nuns with 40,000 years worth of horrible warfare and technology, wrapped up with the Crusades, wrapped up with doing it to everyone who makes them angry. That's I think that's a pretty good general overview. Very, very angry, very, very righteous nuns who will burn everything to the ground if it doesn't agree with them.
I like that, and it actually fits well with the list that was brought. I'm going to go over it really briefly and just hit the big points and explain why someone would bring it. First off, the attachment that they're bringing is Bringers of Flame. They're doing that because it gives everybody assault, which means they can advance and still shoot. And each time an attack is made within 12 inches, their guns are stronger. So they want to run at you, and when they run at you, they hit harder. But not actually in melee. The list starts with its canonesses, their HQs. One running the Iron Surplus of Saint Istala. Anyways, whatever that one is.
I'll take it.
It gives the character 2-up save plus a feel no pain of 5+. Just makes a very tough character to chew through. And then the second one is the Manual of Saint Griselda, which just lets you play with your miracle dice.
Oh.
You.
Yes. The next one is the Triumph of St. Catherine. Right now, I think every list is bringing that. It just does good. It buffs things. I think it gives a plus to hit on 2 different things. It's amazing.
I think it might merit giving a description of
Yeah.
Triumph, because
Very good.
legitimately
Yeah.
it might be the funniest competitive model in the entire range just because of what it is.
So think of your local statue to whatever World War, whatever war your town sent people to, and then put it on a hoverboard and have a bunch of angry nuns around it
Yeah, be
With a
careful.
coffin in front.
with a
Careful,
coffin
Carlo.
in front.
My statue's a little bit different than yours down here.
We're not. I mean, yes.
Oh.
I know.
For those
Yeah.
watching the video podcast on YouTube, there's now a picture of the Triumph on screen.
Yeah, I
Very
thought
nice.
this was like the weirdest vehicle I've ever seen in my life, and then I looked closer, like, wait, this is just a funeral procession.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what it does, it lets you choose 2 abilities at the start of every battle round, and these abilities are like, you can do 2 acts of faith. You can reroll your battle shocks. You get a +1 to your, or 2+ to your movement, +1 to advance and charge. Like it is a Swiss Army knife of making your army better.
Mhm.
Then what they do is they bring in immolators, which have twin multi-meltas and their transports. And what they stick in those transports are Dominion squads with multi-meltas and melta-guns.
Hmm.
So they're now hitting you with strength 10 multi-meltas that do melta,
Jesus.
and they can advance and still shoot you with it.
Melta being the rule where if you're under half, they do extra damage. Or half
Yeah.
range, I should
Half
say.
range,
But-
specifically.
Yeah.
Under half range, and the damage is unmodifiable.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. So, like, if your army is one that's built on reducing damage taken, Melta's going to go through that regardless.
Now, is
Ooh.
that a thing that the Dominion squad specifically gives them?
No, that is the
I think that's
a
the Melta
FAQ
rule.
on Melta.
Yeah,
The
because like a
Melta rule
sequencing
cannot be
thing.
modified.
Correct. It is a added damage after the fact.
Yeah,
Crazy.
sequencing.
The thing that I love seeing in a lot of sisters lists right now are castigator tanks, because they're a new model, and they are just everywhere.
They're
This-
also gorgeous.
This list had 1 with a battle cannon, 2 with autocannons, and this is what you're seeing in a lot of lists. They have just the backbone of tanks.
Is that the?
It
You-
basically
you-
looks
you-
like a cathedral Lehman Russ. Like,
Can
Yeah,
you get one easily?
They're
Well,
not
they're-
stupid expensive.
They're in their own
No.
kit, or are they on part of a box
no,
set?
they're in the kit. There's a
Alright.
standalone product. That's where I got this picture from.
Is it
and they're 150 points, so they're on about par with a Lehman Russ too.
Ooh.
This
church
is-
on wheels?
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
this is what happens if the Catholic Church never lost their seat of power from like the Roman Empire.
The other thing that you'll see a lot of sisters do, and this guy did it too, although he did it in a way that I didn't expect. He brought 2 squads of 5 Seraphim, which are their flying deep strike point getters,
Mhm.
and a squad of 10 Seraphim,
Cheeky.
which I think, if I had to guess, that actually what he's probably using the 5-man squads for were screening. For new people, what that is you can't. I won't say can't. It is hard to move past an enemy unit. You can't end a movement with an engagement range of them. A lot of things can't just go through them. So if you spread out your units in a
Yeah.
way where someone can't run through you, they act as sort of a wall.
Mhm.
The 1-inch no touchy bubble per model.
Yeah.
Also
Yeah.
emotionally.
And so it's a good way of using cheap units to make sure that your bigger units get to choose when they go into melee. And speaking of melee, they also have the Paragon war suits, or as I like to call them, the Nundums. They have
else?
multi-meltas, stormbolters, warblades. Like this list wants to run at you and set you on fire and hit you with melta.
Beautiful.
It sounds like the closest thing to like a Imperium corn list as you're gonna get.
It's You know what? It's almost, and I'm sorry for all the Space Marine players out there. It is a Salamander's naughty dream.
Yeah.
It's a Salamander's attachment that's kind of better than the Salamander's attachment.
Well, you know.
Yeah. So just to give an idea of why the immolators are the go-to transport for this. So not only do they have the multi-meltas, which are twin-linked in the shooting phase, if after this model has shot, select one enemy unit hit by this, and they can't benefit from cover.
Holy shit.
How are you going to hide
Yeah.
and cover if we burned a hole through the wall?
Yeah.
So it's
So.
Also,
Jeez,
I want to point out that the Paragon warsuits are very, very clearly inspired by someone watching the
oh wait, it's the
blue
Matrix.
cat. No, it's the blue cat people. Movie.
Avatar.
Oh, Avatar.
I didn't
Avatar.
want
If
to
you
say
want
it
them-
for copyright reasons.
if
Oh.
you want the Matrix,
wow.
that is the Dread Knight for
Oh,
the
yeah.
next army we're
Grey
going to
Knight's
talk
baby
about.
carrier is
carrier.
100%.
And actually, that's the next army we're going to talk about. They won a tournament 5-0.
Mm.
They won the Mountain View Mayhem 4th annual charity tournament.
Oh.
Oh, charity.
Which is
Now-
located where?
Where does this one go? This was give me a second.
Where
It's
in
my
the
notes.
world is
Hickory, North Carolina.
Hickory?
56 players, 5 rounds. To give you an idea, the Leeds tournament was England, 219 players, 5 rounds. The sisters had a 7-0 score because the top 4 had to play off.
And that's on top of the shadow round that isn't normally included in those.
Exactly.
So for those who don't know, I learned this the other day, and I'm going to steal Limerick's thunder for 2 seconds. At these really big tournaments, what'll happen is you'll have sort of an initial bracket group where you'll play 2 matches. Then they'll do all of the top players from those bracket groups will play what's called a shadow round, which is anywhere from 1 to 3 matches per player that aren't recorded on the official scores. But the points are used to determine who goes to the winner's bracket and who goes to the almost winner's bracket. And then the people that didn't make it to the shadow round go into the losers brackets. And that's how they get through a 219 person tournament in 5 rounds.
Exactly. So your 5 rounds might actually be 7 games, and that is an insane amount of gameplay,
Well,
given the
and
fact that each game's like 2 hours.
if
2 hours
the
and 50.
Warhammer.
if the Grey Knights player went 7-0 to win, and there's a possibility he played 3 games in the shadow round, that's potentially 10 games of Warhammer. In a
The sisters player,
Sisters,
Grey Knights player, just went 5-0. Now he's doing something that the Grey Knights have done all of 10th. First, if Ryan doesn't mind, I'm gonna steal the lore bit here because Grey Knights are a secret love of mine. If you
You have my
Secret.
blessing.
So the Grey Knights are originally called Demon Hunters in 4th edition, 5th edition, one of those editions. They have since been fleshed out. They are the Emperor's own sons, not Primarchs, but their gene seed comes from the Emperor himself, not a Primarch. And what this gives them is 2 things. One, they are supposedly incorruptible, meaning that they cannot fall to chaos. And 2, they are secret. Nobody really knows they exist. And anybody that does know they exist doesn't know they know because they get mind wiped or dead.
But Limerick, why does it matter if they can't be corrupted by demons?
Because the other unique thing about them is they are all psychers. They are all psychic people. They fight demons on the demon territory.
And the incidence rate of psychic space marines for most of the other legions is what, 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, something like that?
So Librarius will have maybe 25 to 50 members out of 1,000 members.
Yeah.
Jeez,
And-
Lewis.
And don't get me wrong, Grey Knights still have a Librarius. So you're thinking a chapter of Psychers has a group of really powerful Psychers.
Oh.
And now I'll go in and say they're really, really powerful, both in lore and on the table, and that is why the people or the person who won this tournament brought 2 of them.
This is
Zoink.
for the D&D nerds in the audience slash in the cast. This is
Yes.
like the sorcerers versus wizards conundrum. It's like, sure, you've got magic, but do you have training?
So the Brotherhood Librarians are their super psychers. They get slotted into Terminator groups and get to walk the floor with whoever they decide to blow up their brains. Like I said, this list isn't anything new, but it's tried and true. He's bringing librarians. He's bringing Kaldor Drago, who is their supreme grandmaster, and so chapter master. They're bringing a 10-man brick of Terminators because screw you and anything you want to take the center with. They're bringing a 5-man brick of Terminators. They're bringing a 5-man strike squad, or sorry, 3 5-man strike squads, and then the core of the army is not any of that. Is actually 3 Nemesis Dread Knights. Now, the Nemesis Dread Knights are the original Nundums, except that they're not nuns; they are Grey Knights, and the whole army has the ability to teleport at the end of your opponent's turn. Tournament players call it uppy downy.
Uppy downy.
They get to uppy downy a set number of units based on the size of the game, and it's
the
annoying.
Uppies in
Uppy
conjunction
down.
with what the Nemesis Dread Knight model is, which I think Bill's just trying to get in the chat, is just it's so much funnier in context.
Oh, please.
The reason why Dread Knights are being taken right now is they have the ability to, whenever they advance, they fly. And they can advance and charge.
Yeah, okay.
They fly now?
Yeah, so they're considered flying when they're advancing, because the idea is that they're not actually advancing; they just blink to you.
So okay, for the YouTube viewers, I've got a picture of the Dread Knight on screen. For those of you that are on Spotify, I need to emphasize that this looks like a big robot space marine with a teeny tiny regular space marine strapped to the front of it in a baby harness. Like it earned the nickname the baby carrier through blood, sweat, and tears, and most of the tears are from Grey Knights players who really hate this model.
Really?
So the fact that competitive players are having to run 3 of these on the tables, I find hysterical because they've earned it.
Honestly, I love the model.
Yeah, like I don't think it needs a refresh or anything. It looks just fine.
This
It's
model
just
is the
goofy.
number one reason I never tried Grey Knights. Of all the
Maybe
armies
you-
I've tried in my history playing this game, I've never tried Grey Knights.
Oh, come on, just maybe like a head refresh. That's it. You don't
No,
need much.
seriously, I have pictures of myself. I look exactly like this thing with my kids and a baby carrier in front of me, and I can't do it. It's not happening.
So yeah, this list tried and true. 11 units. They're gonna run at you, teleport all over the place, take whatever they want, and run away with it.
Oh my god, I still have a great cosplay for Warhammer World.
I was just gonna say I gotta make one of these for a Halloween costume. Put the little owl in front.
Yes.
Next, I'm gonna task Ryan with explaining who the Thousand Sons are. Speaking of psychers,
Oh boy, Thousand Sons.
Maybe.
Funnily enough, there's not necessarily 1,000 of them.
What?
I know, right? A name that isn't completely literal in 40k.
You ever lied to me?
Well, he lied to a lot of people, and the Thousand Sons think that they're all part of that. Well, the first and most important thing anyone needs to know about Thousand Sons is Magnus didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, so we're picking fights on the podcast now, are we?
That phrase is it'll get you some interesting conversation, regardless of whether or not you believe it's true. The Thousand Sons, to actually get into it, are one of the original 20/18 founding Space Marine legions. They are one of the 9 that ended up turning traitor. In terms of the game, there are 4 Chaos Gods, and the Thousand Sons are the Chaos Space Marine traders that are, shall we say, associated with the Chaos God known as Tzeentch. We're not going to say dedicated to or devoted to. it's kind of like, when you work at a very large company and you hate your boss, but you don't have a choice because that's the only way you can afford to live. That's basically what the Thousand Sons are dealing with.
Are you
It's
telling
like,
me that the Thousand Sons signed the Chaos version of a non-compete agreement?
Mhm.
Pretty
if
much.
I were to set my relationship status on Facebook, would this be the it's complicated kind of realm, or like, is that what
Oh,
I'm saying?
Tzeentch loves the It's Complicated. That's basically where he lives. Yeah, just as planned. That's another phrase you will want to learn in relation to the Thousand Sons, or anything Tzeentchian. Really, it's always just as planned, even when he loses.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's them. They were basically the most psyker heavy of all the original legions. They had a really bad time when the original legions and all their primaries convened a council and banned psyching. They also suffered more than many legions from mutations, courtesy of their psychicness. In an attempt to address this, their number 2 man, one Azek Ahriman, attempted a big spell called the Rubric of Ahriman, and boy, oh boy, it didn't work so well. And instead of curing his legion of all their mutations and everything, he turned everyone who wasn't a psyker and able to protect themselves psychically into animated dust.
Slight amendum there.
Amendum?
Addendum.
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 Addendum. Slight
that one.
addendum to that.
Mhm.
It wasn't people who weren't psychic because all the Thousand Sons are psychic, like the Grey Knights. It was if you don't fall within this psychic power level, you die.
Yeah, it was. That's fair point.
Like a
They were all
color?
psychic to some degree. If you weren't a more capable psyker that was powerful and or knowledgeable enough to protect yourself from the rubric,
Imagine
you were
gatekeeping
toast.
dangerous cosmic mystery. I mean, come on.
This guy.
Right? So most of their legion and army is a bunch of not dudes walking around in suits that are powered by magical fairy dust.
Hold on.
The guy in charge of the legion was very angry about this, and the guy who did this spell, Isaac, has basically been on a quest ever since trying to figure out how to fix his big oopsie. And otherwise, they've just kind of been doing their own thing and going and screwing with people as instructed.
As instructed. So is the dust inside the suits or on the suits?
It is indeed inside the suits.
Is there a man
basically
in
a ghost fairy dust man that makes the suit move.
If you
and
puncture a Thousand Sons armor, does it whistle like a balloon?
No.
that's a great question.
No. The perfect way to think of this, the original Hellboy movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
The dude who, when you shot him, sand came out.
Mhm.
That's what that is. Now, to also add, these sentient suits are somewhat sentient. They have
To a degree, yeah.
they have no willpower, but the people that control them can sense the remnants of who they were.
Yeah. There is hope. That part of it is there is hope that the rubric might be able to be reversed and that they can be restored, which is why Azek Ahriman is running around trying to.
Isn't that the carrot that Magnus keeps dangling in front of Armin to keep him in line too?
Yeah, there is, I think, a theory that Magnus, who, for those who don't know, is the name of the Primarch of the Thousand Sons. There's potential that he knows how to do it, and he's just using it to keep Ahriman doing what he wants.
There's also a theory that he's just letting Armand live because that way he doesn't have to look for it himself. He can do other things.
Honestly, same.
Hilariously, before the last little tidbit, before Limerick gets into the actual competitive scene, the Thousand Sons have been instructed by Big Daddy Tzeentch to go and stop the ascension of somebody we mentioned last time and who might come up, a greater demon known as Vashtor the Archiphane, whose whole shtick is machines and robotics. And where they're going, where Vashtor is, the Thousand Suns can't go because it's basically a gigantic anti-psychic bubble. So they're sending robots to fight the robot demon.
To
Oh,
fight the
yeah.
creator
As-
demon who's very close to becoming the chaos god of screwed up robots.
So that is a very, very amusing point in the recent lore that will definitely not backfire like
We're
anything else the Thousand Suns have ever done.
We're so cooked, bro.
Nah.
I will say, Vashtor is one of the models that I am the most sad I can't bring as an ally for my knights.
He's so cool.
I would own a Vashtor in a heartbeat. I love that
Mhm.
model.
I just want a Vashtor themed Death Guard army.
I'm sure he'll get his
Oh.
own legion.
Yeah, you
honestly.
want demonic Iron Warriors is what you want, Bilge.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Limerick, Thousand Suns.
Competitively, they won their tournament, Brewhammer Grand Tournament 6. That was in Scotland. 46 players, 5 rounds, 2 days.
Hmm.
The list is pretty generic for Thousand Suns. Has Armand, has a couple Exalted Sorcerers, has an Infernal Master, or a couple Infernal Masters, has Magnus Thread. Lots of characters because your characters in the Thousand Suns list are where you're getting your power from. The big things with the Thousand Suns is they like to buff up their psychic abilities, and they have the ability to make all their weapons psychic. So they just
Yeah.
stack powers on top of each other. Magnus Thread is obviously your big hammer. He likes to hit everything that looks like a nail, which when you are a hammer is everything. They have Rubric Marines because again, you need units to do actions. They come with Warp Flamers because Flamers are stupidly strong with their ability to just hit.
And
They
they
don't.
also recently took away the ability for them to make those warp flamers indirect fire.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
They can still make them psychic, which allows them to buff the hell out of them still.
Aw.
But anyways, Flamers are very strong. Most units are only allowed to have 1 per 5. Rubric Marines are allowed to have 3 per 5 plus a flame pistol on the sorcerer, so technically 4 per 5.
Jeez Louise.
So
Yeah.
okay, now I want to take one quick step back. You mentioned that characters are where they get all their power from. That seems like the kind of thing that's fairly standard for most armies in the game. Explain what's special about the way that they bring characters for Thousand Suns specifically.
Oh, yes. So, not just characters, but characters provide the large bulk of it. Thousand Suns have this mechanic called sorcery points, or cabal points,
Cabal
sorry.
points.
They allows them to do certain things, you get X number of cabal points per character, per unit, per stuff. So you want your characters there to stack up those points. Also, while it is, I'll say, common for the character to be powerful, it is not as giant a bridge as Thousand Suns have. Thousand Suns don't really have a unit that can stack up to their characters. A lot of armies, if you take a 10-man brick of their Terminator equivalent, can go mano a mano with anything on the table. Thousand Suns don't have anything that's worth that. So they bring their characters because they don't have the hammers that other armies have within their Terminator equivalents or elite units. The other things in this list that are good to see, you have your cultists for your point control, and then you have their Zangor Enlightened. They're the ones on the discs. So they're fast. They're your board control. So I mean, it again. I think at the end I'll go over what all of this means, but as far as Thousand Suns, you're not having to do anything too out of the box to get victories. So,
Did this list not take any mutaliths?
nope.
That's a shame.
But why would you bring a Mutalith? They don't have psychic weapons.
Yeah, they
Despite
need
looking like
changed.
this. For those of you on Spotify, he's got a warp vortex on his back.
Nah, man, that's just a normal space marine if I ever saw one.
Yes, I'm carrying a small piece of the Eye of Chaos. Psychic weapons? No, brother, I don't get into that.
No, my weapons specifically have very psychic names, but no.
Wow.
Hey, you know what else hates psychic? Death Guard.
So we talked about this earlier, but the Council of Nicaea, which is where psychers were outlawed, which was kind of the beginning of the end for the would otherwise have been loyal Thousand Sons, was largely instigated by Mortarion, Primarch of the Death Guard.
Is it pronounced Nicaea? Because I was pretty sure there was a K.
It's
Nope, there's no K.
Nicea.
Huh. What do you know?
Old Morty.
So, Ryan, if you want to give a quick overview of what the Death Guard are.
So, you know how Thousand Sons are all about, well, they're not really all about Tzeentch, but, contractually obligated to say that they are.
It's complicated.
The Death Guard are at least halfways all about the Tzeentch's older brother, Nurgle. Nurgle is got many names, including various names related to grandfather is the official one, but a lot of people like to use something a bit more familiar, like Grandpappy.
Grandpappy Plague.
Grandpappy Plague. He's big, he's fat, he's old, and he is happy.
He lives in a garden. The man's an ecologist.
He does live in a garden. He would tell you that he's the chaos god of life.
And he
sneaking
has a girl.
Card in the end.
He's got a girl?
He does indeed have a girl. He is hilariously, considering Slanesh, the only chaos god that does have a girlfriend. Willingly, willing is maybe not, part of that, but
Well, is it like a domestic partner situation, or are they married under the covenant of God?
He said, "I will house you and not let you get eaten by Slanesh." And she went, "No, I'd rather be eaten." And he went, "No, you're staying in my garden."
Oh, I've heard this Greek
he
tale
said, "This
before.
is for your own good."
All right, okay.
So anyway, the Death Guard are again one of the original founding legions of Space Marines that turn one of the 9 that turn traitor. They are also big and fat and kind of ugly, but they would tell you that they're beautiful because they're filled with life, by which they mostly mean viruses and bacteria. If they brush their teeth, they do it with swamp water and
Or they'd melt the toothbrush.
yeah, or basically, yeah, the toothbrush has more issues than their teeth do. Yeah, they're honky chonky. They're really tough. They beat me by like 12 or 14 points in a game very recently. They nasty.
So if they're
them big green nasty boys.
It's
they're
worth
so full of
it's worth mentioning that even before they fell to chaos, the Death Guard, when they were loyal, were known for being just never say die kind of a legion. Like they would break a siege by just marching, not running, marching towards the siege point and being like, yeah, you shot me, what about it?
Okay.
They were notoriously tough and resistant to disease and corruption, given that the planet their home planet was full of disease and fumes and other horrible things.
Yep.
So they were, yes, naturally very resilient, which is part of the irony that they basically fell to the chaos god that's about all of those things, who then made them fall to all of those things, but also made them tougher for it. So that's them.
And on the table, they are currently the winning army of Warhammer 40,000 Throne of Skulls, which is a tournament in give me a second here. England again, 74 players, 5 rounds. They went 5-0. They're another one of their armies that, it's. I'm going to start this off by saying they play the most like regular Space Marines. in so much as their gimmicks and their tricks aren't like the Thousand Suns, where it's all character heavy, aren't like World Eaters, where it is literally just run at you and kill you. They like having multiple avenues of success.
Yeah, they're not
Like
a one trick pony.
No, and like most Space Marine armies. Now they do have characters because characters are the way this game is played right now. They lead units that buff them. You have the Biologist Putrefier, which gives them the Blight Grenade bonuses. You have the Chaos Lord because Plague Fists and punch you in the face. Flower Blight Spawn gives you first fight, I believe, or fight first, which allows you to. Sorry, I don't think it gives you fight first. I think it gives something fight last.
Ooh.
That makes more sense in a plague-oriented way.
You have the Lord of Contagion, which is a mini Typhus, which is funny because then you also have a Typhus. You have a Tallyman. You have Mortarion. One thing that you'll see in pretty much any Chaos like God army is if you have a Primarch, you're bringing them.
Yeah.
Mortarion is big, winged, moves around, kills things, hard to kill. You have, for your battle line, you have 2 squads of 10 Plague Marines. They're not what you use to get around because they are slow as hell, but they're hard to kill. You have 2 Rhinos to help them move around. You have Cultists for point control. You have a Predator, which you almost never see anymore, but they don't really have other armor options right now. You have Terminators for a deep strike option there. You have Poxwalkers. You have Nurglings. Like I said, I could see a 1-for-1 ratio with this with any sort of Gladius Task Force Space Marine. So I'd say right now, if you're a big fan of Death Guard, think like a Space Marine. Because it seems to have multiple avenues of success and flex your strong characters.
So like before corruption, they were like still just grossly resilient in lore.
So they were once Mortarion was found. Prior to Mortarion being found, because Mortarion did survive on a Death World, is classified as like Death Worlds are horrible places to live for humans. The planet's actively trying to kill you. But the Legion itself, before Mortarion came and sort of redirected them, they were called the Dusk Raiders, and they were known for like blitz attacks at dusk and just overwhelming your opponent with disorganization.
Okay.
But then when Mortarion came around and said, no, this is how we're doing things, they found success. And one of the things, lore-wise, I don't think that is stressed often enough is when the Primarchs came to their legions, it was like a dad coming home that they had longed for forever. You have like the loyal ones were happy to see them. The traitor legions were happy to fall traitor because of them. Like they, except for the odd instance where where characters didn't like their Primarch, the only legion to reject their Primarch was the World Eaters.
Really?
And even then, they became the World Eaters because they tried to please their Primarch so much, and then they finally said, "No, I'm sorry, this is nuts." But by that point, they were already crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
The nails aren't the kind of thing that you can second guess.
No.
I made a terrible decision.
I'd also like to point out that Death Guard list that Limerick is talking about, it's not a normal list.
No,
So I think
by no means.
you can kind of, from what I've seen recently, you can kind of build Death Guard to kind of however you want to play them, and it will probably work out for you pretty well.
There's not much that's truly bad within the Death Guard roster.
My list is nothing like the list that Limerick was just going through, and Mine works great for me.
I will say this list has another thing that is unique about it. It is a full 250 points below the 2,000 point limit.
Yeah, which is just weird. He
That-
has plenty of room to put other things in. I just don't understand why he's not.
He's either trying to make a point or he's just trying to flex on everybody else that was there. Like,
or
Yeah.
no, we'll give him the credit, give him benefit of the doubt. Maybe 1750 is all he has.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe.
valid. I just like what?
yeah.
Well, because if you look at what the list is, like he brought Typhus, Mortarion, a Lord of Contagion, and a Chaos Lord. Those are all things that you buy because they look cool.
The Chaos
Well,
Lord
and-
also isn't very good.
Yeah, the Chaos Lord hasn't been like quote unquote usable from a meta standpoint in Death Guard lists in like 3 editions.
Damn.
Also, the Lord of Contagion also isn't the best leader for Death Shrouds anymore. So
Yeah, but you can't buy the Lord of Virulence model.
no, I know.
So a Lord of Death Guard Chaos Lord has a maybe. While an enemy unit is within contagion range of this model, at the end of the turn, roll 1d6 on 4 up. That enemy suffers d3 mortal wounds.
Living lightning.
Mm.
Well, okay, but the problem is it doesn't say end of your turn.
Oh, better living lightning.
It literally just says at the end of the turn.
The Chaos Lord and Terminator armor.
No, this is just regular Death Guard Chaos Lord.
Oh, he's the plane chain version.
Yeah. And then while this model is leading a unit, each time that unit makes an attack, reroll hit roll a 1, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
It gives him the Plague Fist, which is lethal hits.
Desiccation Conduit.
I can see it being interesting, especially since like contagion range increases to 9 inches in 3rd battle round.
Yeah.
And if you give him you can give him the what's it called?
Oh, the enhancement.
The enhancement that increases it at 3 inches. So at battle round 3, it's 12.
So I mean, at a possible 12 inches, you're doing D3 mortal wounds 50% of the time
Yeah, that's true.
on any unit within there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a nice ability to have.
So, is there like an objectively bad unit in the Death Guard army right
There
now?
are worse ones. I wouldn't say bad.
Bad is
Blight
bad is
Lord.
relative.
Blight Lord Terminators are, for the most part, not used because they're just so much worse than Death Shrouds. They're 35 more points. They have a terrible melee compared to the Death Shrouds, and their ranged options are really not that much better than Plague Brains.
Well,
So-
like,
They're just a little tougher.
Even the Lord of Contagion. I don't like the Virulence might be better, but the Contagion has reroll hits.
No,
as long as
I don't like the Lord of Contagion leading my Death Shrouds. I have the Lord of Virulence.
reroll hits, and then each time this model loses a wound on 4 up, they inflict a wound. A mortal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you roll right.
So the 2 problems that, because we had to get into this with the Lord of Contagion. The 2 problems with his is if he's escorting Death Shrouds, their ranged weapons are torrent and their melee weapons hit on 2s. So rerolling hits has
You really don't need rerolls.
less value than it might otherwise. And the mortals on damage doesn't trigger for each damage that he takes. It's each time he loses a wound. So if he
Yeah.
gets hit once by something that does 4 damage, it's only when it hits him, not his escorted unit, and it only triggers once.
Right.
Yeah, so if he gets hit with like a 6 damage or a 5 damage, he's just dead. He gets to roll 1 time. And he might do a mortal.
Versus the Lord of Contagion gives wound or the Lord of Virulence, I should say, gives wound rerolls.
Only on ranged attacks.
But yeah. But he's got a flamer weapon that just like wildly outclasses just about any other infantry carried flamer in the game.
No, I'm not saying the virulence is bad. It just to me, you're
The Lord
only
of
buffing.
Contagion is better if he's with Blight Lords or Plague Marine.
Well, but the Death Shrouds aren't a ranged unit. Am I wrong?
No, they have flamers.
I'm just
No, I know they have flamers.
They're not a
but-
ranged unit by any means. No.
So the virulence only does ranged and blast.
No, I understand that, but he's still better than rerolling hit rolls when you're hitting on 2s for Death Shrouds. I'm not saying he's not a good. I'm not saying that the Lord of Virulence is the. In my opinion, I think he's the best one to lead Death Shrouds compared to Lord of Contagion.
Because what I'd be doing is with the Man Reapers, I'm farming for lethals.
Man Reaper.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. You could absolutely farm for lethals on heavier targets, but with some of the stratagems you can use, I almost one-shot Ryan's Land Raider with a unit of 3. So
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe like I'm not the Death Guard player. I'm just looking at the two of them.
there's definitely arguments to be made. Like we were saying, there's not a wrong way to do a list. I think.
Yeah, this is
That
one
might
of
be the
those where
takeaway.
There isn't a wrong answer. It's going to come down to how you want to play the specific unit that Lord is going with.
I wish my army was like that.
Yeah, it sounds nice, doesn't it?
right.
It's like, oh
Yeah,
boy, well,
with
I can
the-
choose to lose, or I can choose to pay way too much money for all the units I don't like.
Yeah.
Or with the World Eaters, you just get to play one way.
I'm just gonna,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
So
the
one way. That's the right way.
So yeah, that's the end of it for the list breakdown.
Grand tournament series.
I think the takeaway here is we're back into Hero Hammer, but oddly enough,
Yeah.
not.
Honestly, play the armies how you want to play them. If you lose, you lose.
Well,
Oh,
and
definitely.
it's worth mentioning too that like this is very much focused on high end like lists that win competitive tables. Like these are
Against
people
other
that
competitive
they come
armies.
to win. Yeah.
Mhm,
Well,
mhm.
okay. So the reason I'm doing this isn't to say this is how you should play. Play the
No.
game however you want to play. I'm a firm believer that what I am hoping to do by breaking down the list every week is, and not I won't be doing it every week, but by breaking down the list is for someone who's listening to go, hey, you know what every list has? It has this. You know what every list doesn't have? This. You know, it's like Death Guard are unique where they don't really have a bad choice. But like I said, we're back in the realm of Hero Hammer. Heroes are extremely important. So maybe if you're wanting an army that doesn't really play with heroes, you're looking for more of a Imperial Guard or a Sisters list, which only had the 3.
Mm.
You know,
I think
it's
it's worth interjecting there that every single list I have sent Limerick in the last 6 months, he's gone, wow, that's so flavorful. I like it.
Yes,
Translation.
And you know
You
what?
gonna
I have a
lose, boy.
great time.
okay. So I will say, of the 5 of us, I am the competitive-minded person, but I wasn't always that way.
You're on a tournament team.
I am.
You,
It was
you don't
always
get
that
a
way.
choice anymore.
No, but I wasn't always that way. Frick, I played Death Watch for almost a year.
Yep, I remember that.
I mean,
I felt bad
my
for you the whole time.
my lose streak when I first started playing Warhammer got into like the 40s.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's I like fluff and I like armies that feel good. And in competitive scenes, I think they have a place because they keep people grounded.
One of the things that we're planning a trip collectively for the group of us to go to the Las Vegas Open January 2026. And one of the things that the LVO does that I really like is that they have like an Ultra Sweats division and they have like a I Play for Fun division. And so
Yes.
there are tournaments that are there for you if you're not, you know, you don't want to be the grand tournament winner, you don't want to go to France and represent your country kind of thing. So
Right.
that does exist.
Mhm.
That being said, we are going to take a short break. Going to be like 10-15 minutes. I need to step away for a second. So we're going to see. Okay. And then we'll get into some Warhammer Plus stuff with Mark. So Don't
Stop
go
playing
anywhere.
music.
And
7.
welcome back. Don't
Woo.
mess with my counting as I'm counting us back in from a break. Why would you do that? Why?
I'm the co-host.
You are an agent.
You made him.
I specifically called it a demotion for a reason. You are an agent of chaos, sir, and I actually appreciate it. So we're just gonna move right along. Welcome to the 6th member of our illustrious little crew here. Thank you for joining us, Colleen.
It's good to be here. Happy to be here.
She's a fellow unspecialized nerd with me and Pilch. She's here for color commentary with the two of us. So welcome
Absolutely.
to the hosting desk. So as we mentioned at the top of the break, we are going to talk a little bit with Mark, getting into the new season of Warhammer Plus that's coming, because Mark has been messaging me all week, vibrating like a kid at Christmas, just excited over the moon for all of this new stuff that's coming down. So I'll hand it off to you. Tell us what's coming up.
Sure thing. So, if you don't know what Warhammer Plus is, Games Workshop put out a neat little subscription service. I think it's like $6 a month, just about, or $60 a year, where you can get access to a lot of their online content. The main pull for me, anyway, is all of their media content, which has a lot of different animations, a lot of different little series done by different people. There are some really good ones, some really interesting ones. And then there's also a lot of videos that deal with like how to get into painting, how to start building your army, and then the different kind of recaps and all that kind of stuff. I personally signed up for Warhammer Plus about a year ago, almost a year ago, because they released a little series that included the Necrons. It's a great time to be a Necron enjoyer. It's called Pariah Nexus, which of course ties into the current lore and current setting that we're in now with current season, the Pariah Nexus season. So it's been a great time. The animation, if you get the chance to go watch it or watch it bum off your friend's subscription, definitely go take a look. It is fantastic. I think it's one of the best shows on there, besides like the original Astartes. It's beautifully animated. I want them to do a full-length movie with the animation style. It's fantastic. And they're doing more. They've released, I think, the first episode of like a second season type thing.
Correct.
It's
Yes.
a follow-up show, not so much a second
Follow-up
season.
Well, sort of. It's an anthology, and the first episode is a follow-up.
No, you're thinking of the one on Prime Video. This is a
That is
specific.
also an anthology, but Tithes is not.
Tithes is about
episodes
the salamander and the apothecary, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
The
Yes.
first one is. I
Yeah.
don't know what the second and third one are.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
As far as I understand it, like the first season, quote unquote, season of Pariah Nexus is like a bunch of mini episodes kind of strung together in like longer episodes that kind of detail the aftermath of this big war or battle lost by the forces of the Imperium on this planet called Paradise, I think, in the Pariah Nexus. They lost to the Necrons. And it follows the issue we're watching, haven't seen it yet. It follows the journey of a sister of battle, Adeptus Sororitas, named Danica of the Order of Our Murdered Lady, who is haunted by her troops' failure to stave off the attack and save the faithful of the planet. She is followed by a single salamander space marine named Zakan. He crash landed on the planet to try and help, and all of his battle brothers died in the impact. He's alone, surviving, trying to make his way and help people. Cool thing about salamanders as a gene seed Primarch driven boy army, they have a better propensity to help mortals and the little folk. So Sakan is trying to be more mindful of humans. You also get a shit ton of Necron screen time. You get all the warriors you can dream of. You get Scorpic destroyers. You get death marks. You get Illuminor Saraz himself, the big man on campus in the Nexus Pariah, in the Nexus Nephilim sector, managing the whole nodal matrix that we talked about last time. And he is doing stuff. This little series kind of alludes to his experiments that he's doing on humans he's captured, which, if we mentioned last time, he works for the Silent King. Silent King wants to ultimately reverse the biotransference that turned the race of people he belongs to into immortal, soulless robots. So purportedly, Sarah is working on that, experimenting on people. So that's the series. I won't spoil anything in there in the first. Also, I'm not trying to spoil too much, but I encourage you to go watch it. So now we have this like new season, first episode called Tides, and it follows Sakan, our Space Marine salamander guy. He's back, still kicking around, and we see him in his little journey join up with an ultramarine apothecary named Brutus. Now, an apothecary in Space Marine lore is responsible ultimately for the health of his battle brothers when he goes into conflicts, and also recovering the gene seed of any Space Marines that fall in battle, which basically Space Marine is a very heavily augmented, originally human being that has survived the process of turning them into a demigod man of a soldier. Part of that stems from genetic enhancements, not least of all is a organ inserted into their body that through some kind of biological process makes them beefier. I guess it's called a gene seed. I actually don't know the science behind it, quote unquote science. That's what it does, right? More or less.
There are
Yes.
several organs, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, but
So the
there's one
apothecary is
important
responsible
one, progenoid gland. That's what they call it.
for
Yeah.
a bunch of different shit they stuck in. The gene seed is
Because
very important.
it modifies their genetic code to more mimic their Primarch, right? Like that's what the progenoid is for.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the
So-
thing that the apothecaries have to get.
hmm And the gene seeds, I don't know if it is now, but before, as far as I understand it, there was a limited number of them, or they were hard to produce. So the gene seed in your Space Marine body might have been used by a couple other, maybe half a dozen or a dozen of those battle brothers before you who fell in battle. So they tried to reuse, recycle and all that. Very sustainability living we're thinking about. So apothecary, very important role he plays on the battlefield. So Sakan and Brutus ventured down deep into the underbelly of the surface. I don't know if it's the same planet because they don't mention it. Could be a different planet, but they go into the kind of upper layers of the tomb world of the Necrons beneath that planet, which basically any planet in the Warhammer universe. It's possible that for just millions of years, Necrons have slumbered underneath the surface in the big old Blackstone city. You have no idea until it pops up and destroys your entire existence. So these two venture down into one to try and recover the gene seeds of the Ultramarine battle brothers that the apothecary came in with, basically. And they have it's like a nice little 15-minute episode. They give a lot of time to a conversation between Sakan and Brutus, where Brutus kind of puts the irons to Sakan a little bit. I would describe it as him kind of getting the Titus treatment from like Space Marine. He's getting accused of not being zealous enough in fighting the Xenos threat or caring too much for the lives of innocent mortals, because other Space Marines will focus on their mission and not care about otherwise collateral damage. And I think it's kind of warranted almost, because Sakan says some kind of crazy things, guys. Like Sakan in the animation almost kind of empathizes with some of the Necrons for a little bit, which is really kind of tense moment. But as they go through, they find the place that they're looking for, and they descend deeper into the tomb world, and they find the bodies of most of the battle brothers that the guy is looking for. So Brutus begins to extract the gene seeds while Sakan covers him. And I don't know if it's ever been like animated or mentioned in media before, but this show gives a disturbing close-up on what a gene seed looks like freshly ripped out of a Space Marine body, and it is haunting. I recommend anyone who hasn't gone to see it go see it or look it up. I'm surprised that
give you
it's
hankering for calamari.
yeah, it's
Ugh.
like the size of a golf ball, and it's absolutely covered in tentacles for some reason. And
Well,
it's just
yeah. How
terrible.
else is it going to put all of the seed into your genes?
I don't know, man. They should just censored it. Fuck, screw that. But the kind of point that I wanted to touch on there that kind of ties into the Nexus lore, because we want the lore to be furthered and the plot devices to be used. During this time, the Sakan is covering Brutus. Illuminor Zeraz comes out of a hologram and starts to taunt him. Like a little scarab comes up, and a little hologram pops out, and they start talking, have a conversation. And Sakan shoots the scarab, because why wouldn't shoot? Then a warrior comes out, and he has a longer conversation. And he shoots that one. And eventually, he goes to enough to talk to him, and there's just a warrior just standing there staring at Sakan, and they're having a conversation. And it's really tense. Like if I was Brutus, I would just shoot both of them at this point. Like this is definitely heresy. But Sakan has this conversation. He kind of hesitates because Sarah is basically taunts him, saying, "If you're really as vengeful and as zealous as you said before, and threatening me, come through this portal and face me yourself." And Sakan almost does it, or seems to. He hesitates, but he does, not necessarily do that. And I won't spoil too much more of the ending of what goes on, but the big takeaway is that as they escape, at least one gene seed was not recovered and is in the Illuminor's possession. And all of the experiments that he's shown down in his little lab were on primarily humans. So I'm very interested to see if they take that any further with what he's doing with his Space Marine gene seed of the Ultramarines. Because he's ultimately trying to reverse biotransference. So I would hate to see how grotesque this can get as the story progresses.
I feel like this is one of those moments where I keep expecting to hear Trays in the Infinite has entered the chat.
Yeah.
It's like I love the focus of the Necrons in these things because the sound design is amazing. The characters are so cool to see. I wish they did a little bit more in this episode with the different types of Necrons you see, because the first season kind of spoiled us with so many different types. This one is really just like a 24 warriors the entire time. It's like they two Marines infiltrate this tomb world, and all they come across is warriors. It's like, all right. There was actually a really funny scene where, as they're walking through and running through the hallways, they encounter a swarm of scarabs that they just absolutely tear through. And they don't waste bullets on them. They do some really funny kicks. They just splatter these bugs everywhere.
What would it look like for a Space Marine to kick a scarab?
It was really funny. It's the image that I saw from the broadcast. So it was literally Sakan jumping into the air and doing a high knee on a scarab and floating in the air. It looks like he's just trying to ride a bicycle or dunk a basketball. It's really weird.
Nice.
Really funny. So as far as new lore we have for the Prime Nexus, this is kind of the developing forefront of it. And I don't know if I don't want to speculate too much, but if Sarah seems to have some kind of breakthrough, which she seemed to be getting closer in the first season, to doing something, maybe transferring consciousness or something, I don't know. But I would hate to see or even portend the idea of a Necron Marine hybrid.
I don't know. They've been so in the lore. There's a ton of attempts to either reverse engineer or turn Marines.
Okay.
The Tau.
I was going to say the Tau are my favorite.
Did they try as well? Oh, they did.
They tried. Yeah, they weren't able to perfectly replicate the Space Marine. They made better human soldiers, but then a Space Marine ran into the Tau's created Space Marines and basically picked them up and swung them around by their ankles.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and every time they tried to indoctrinate a Space Marine, anytime they came close, the Space Marine lost his mind and killed everybody.
Nice. Beautiful.
So,
well, I'm excited to see what happens. Because I don't know, was that before or after we crossed the Rubicon Primaris?
This was before the
Primaris. I think that was all before.
Different gene seed, maybe.
One thing that I really like that they confirmed with the ties the Ultramarines that are being taken away,
Hmm.
some of us may remember a wild Necrons versus Space Marines and Sisters of Battle trailer for an edition,
Oh.
and they have confirmed as of the promos for episode 1 of the Ties that that is those same Space Marines. So the
Wow.
Space Marine sergeant that you see being super bad in that trailer, I believe at one point in that episode is having his lifeless body dragged by a couple of warriors.
Yeah, he's just there.
Well, because
But
I
they
think
confirmed that same world, and that basically Pariah Nexus and the Tides is the continuation of that story, and that's basically the
yes,
world that got lost.
Okay, okay. I was also wondering that when I saw that scene, like these warriors literally drag, ultra like they literally drag the body of Marines into the tomb, and this is like ultra hyper technologically advanced society. They're just dragging Ceramite body across the flagstones. How did they kill him without destroying his body? Is my question. Because all of their weapons deatomize their targets.
Well, I'm
So
pretty sure he also gets zoinked. Well, maybe not. Maybe
I
it's the
don't know.
captain that gets zoinked in Pariah Nexus by the sniper, but
Maybe they pushed him off a cliff or something.
it's possible.
So yeah, I'm excited to see what more they come out with. I don't know if they're releasing it consistently, but I'll find out more if not. But it's a really great time to be a Necron fan. And in preparation for this little podcast episode, I wanted to go through the recent releases and see if there's any more little lore tidbits that tie into the current season, such as the newly releasing. I think you can still pre-order it, coming out soon. Agents of the Imperium Codex that's coming out. There are sections on it for or the Ordo Xenos, the alien hunters. I was able to get a decent look at the section from sources I will not name, and it doesn't specifically, at least the parts that I saw, did not specifically mention anything for the Pry Nexus. Um, I yeah, so there wasn't anything. There wasn't anything there that was crazy. There was this map, which I'll throw up, but it's pretty much the map we've all seen so far with the Nephilim sector. It's nothing new, so to speak. It doesn't even have the Pry Nexus labeled on it in the Ultima Segmentum. It just shows
Interesting.
the general system. Like nothing's really new or added or anything. But so that was kind of a little bit of disappointment for me as I kind of like just peruse through. But I wanted to go get something for something for you guys to scratch your brain over and speculate with me. So I got something I want to touch on, and it's a semi-recent edition of White Dwarf, issue 499, that has some Necron lore in it.
Ooh.
The section that basically it doesn't really specifically focus on the Necrons. There was one section for a dozen or so pages that talked about the cryptex, which, if you don't know Necron lore, Necron Society cryptex are kind of like the astronomers, scientists, like court magicians of the hierarchy, except to the hyper technological advanced level where they can manipulate the energy, the stars, something that looks like magic is just really advanced technology, and talked about their kind of role in the society. And there was a blurb in there about a specific cryptech called Oricon the Diviner. And he is one of the penultimate chronomancers. I believe he's under the Silent King's retinue. And chronomancers are able to interpret and discern the signs of basically look into the future and make changes in the present to alter that future. Oricon is special. Yep, sorry.
no,
Oh, yeah.
they're sort of Eldari in that regard.
Yes. Where Necrons have no connection to the warp, they have similar abilities through technology. And similar to the Eldar in that regard, these ones can look far, far into the future and make decisions in the present based off those. That's an image of a generic Chronomancer. Oricon is a special model. If you want to play him on the tabletop, you can. He's really, really neat. Got a refresh, I think, a year ago. And I looked up the copyright laws in my country, and it's totally okay if I read this blurb out. I don't know about Canada.
You're fine.
Okay, I got a little thing here to describe why, and it describes why Oricon's in the Pride Nexus, and I think it was really interesting. So here we go. Okay, so no greater chronomancer exists than Oricon the Diviner. So skilled is he in the arts of temporal manipulation that he can move in secret, forward and back along his own timeline, ensuring his predictions come true, even if he has to make them do so by sheer brute force. Of late, however, Oricon's divinations have been skewed by a portentous disruption rolling out in waves from some catastrophic moment of temporal disharmony. The diviner's increasingly frantic search for the cause of this phenomenon has led him deep into the Nephilim sector. So, Oricon seems to have trouble portenting farther into his future than he'd like, and that seems to stem from some event coming up in the future at the Pride Nexus. I don't think this is specifically events we've seen yet. I don't think this would be triggered by the arrival of planet Wormwood. So I think Oricon is privy to something bigger happening that ripples literally across space and time that he is trying to find out more about and potentially prevent if he's able to. Because in that same White Dwarf issue, there's another kind of reference to some time shenanigans going on, which I also wanted to read because it's like kind of weird. And this kind of ties into a little battle. I guess the main battle, technically, in the Prime Nexus, which is forces of the Adeptus Mechanicus, Colleen, versus the forces of the Necrons. Which I don't know if you were able to, kind of key into our first episode of this podcast. Their escalation of the war between those two specific factions has been crazy astronomical.
Yeah.
You
And,
guys just need to tile it down.
Someone needs to. And there's a little in this White Dwarf issue. There was two different little short stories or first chapters of short stories from Black Library, and one of them pertains to a little skirmish between the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Necrons. And actually, Colleen, you might be the best suited to explain to our potential viewers what the Adeptus Mechanicus are, if they have not already found out.
Well, let's see.
If you don't want to throw on that, I know
Yeah.
Colleen plays Adeptus Mechanicus. I believe she has real life models that she's
A
made.
few. I'm starting to collect, and I'm wanting to start painting them soon.
Okay.
We'll see. I've never done painting in my life before with Warhammer models, so we'll see where my patience runs out. But yeah,
You're
AdMech
married to Ryan. He
are-
has the patience.
So, yeah, I at least like painting in my spare time. We'll just see how it transfers onto actual tiny, minuscule surfaces. Because I'm a perfectionist, so.
Yeah, I'm not a patient painter, so she's not going to get any help from me, and her models are tiny and infuriating. So
Yeah. As far as AdMech go, though, it's pretty much like the flesh is weak. Cybernetica is strong, so machine is life, basically. And the machine gods are the elite.
The
I
machine
guess.
god is real, and he is
worth
American.
noting that they start human.
Yeah, they are human with like robot enhancements.
Technically on Team Human. They just think that being human sucks and they should be a more robot human.
They're also coming for your toaster.
Yes, exactly.
Watch
out.
There's a
We'll
name
shock ya.
for them that
We'll
involves
shock ya.
coasters that we probably shouldn't say on here.
Oh my god.
That's why they like the Necron so much. They just have those toaster-like.
It's
bits
just
on
like
their
all
chest.
of the ports just line up. You don't
the
need
best
adapters.
the best way
Okay.
the best way to understand who the Admech are is to understand that if you Google Necron's Rule 34, it takes you to the Black and Decker homepage.
Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on.
No.
Adeptus Mechanicus are very cultish when it comes to technology, so they've kind of shored
Mhm.
up a lot of old technology, not least of all weapons of mass destruction, and they've put that to great use fighting the Necrons in this most recent conflict. So they go toe to toe with them quite often. And in
Maybe
this
the word
story,
great is subjective.
they go well, they get use out of them, I suppose.
Hold on.
But
Is this an actual model? Sorry to interrupt.
No.
oh god,
No.
Okay.
No.
That's an old
If-
squat that was been converted.
Okay.
If it was, I would have that by now, I'm sure.
Oh my god.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
But in part one of this little Black Library short story called The Magos Tempus Purgatus, it details a retinue of Adeptus Mechanicus trying to fend off a Necron force from invading their battleship. Follows the Magos Technicus Tathic Sean as she attempts to reach a weapon in the hold called the Device that she literally stole from her Forge World home of Stygius 8.
Styges.
Styges, thank you so much. I'm glad you're here, Colleen. Styges 8 to bring along on the crusade to the Prime Nexus. And in the chapter, she experiences some strange anomalies that I'll again read from because it ties into like that same temporal manipulation that Oricon's investigating. All right. Okay. There was something else at work on this deck, however. Sean saw the depressingly familiar buckled deck plates and burst conduits caused by the emergency translation from the warp. Yet she also noted tendrils of what appeared to be corrosion furring consoles and stanchions. She vid-captured images of the corruption using secondary optics as she swept down the corridor, and upon analyzing the playback through one of her 3 backup cortices, was surprised to see that the rust was visibly spreading. Part of her consciousness watched with growing disquiet as fingers of corroding corruption spiderwebbed across a console, extinguishing indicator bulbs one by one. Each delicate glass oblong flickered crimson, then turned black as it was touched, glass cracking with sharp little clinks. And keeping in mind that the current event on the ship is that she's being invaded by Necrons, which, as far as I understand, have little to no connection to the warp or warp technologies. Which gives a moment of pause for the Magos here. And in another instance, further along in the story, she finds part of the ship that her system shows was somehow installed that very same day, rather than the years and years before even the ship left the dock of her Forge world, which she could not portend as something that would be possible. And then further still, in that same fight, she transmits orders to her retinue, who respond in acknowledgement with their binaric chants. And then a few moments later, that same retinue repeats the same inquiry, asking the same question again. And it's really funny how it's depicted in the story. Like, she's trying to open like a door really haphazardly. They're like protecting her. She takes time out of her brain to do the equivalent of a per my last email thing to this guitar she's talking to. And she is dumbstruck by the literal bona fide data in front of her that's saying that the first acknowledgement never happened, which should be impossible.
Wow.
She at that point chalks it up to, and I quote, techno heretical weaponry that the Necrons must be using, which I have never heard before as a phrase spoken in regards to the Necrons. And in that same moment, she realizes it's a dangerous thought and purges it from her system so that it does not corrupt her.
Oh.
Oof.
Yep. Well,
So
I gotta say that all sounds an
Wish
awful
I
lot
could do
more
that.
like Vashtor than
yeah, which is really strange to me, where it's like it's the entire first chapter of the short story, where it kind of ends shortly after that, that she reaches the device. They don't say what it is. It's all just Necrons invading the ship. So why is there all this warp shenanigans going on that seems to be blanking stuff in and out of time almost? And seeing as it was in the same kind of article from the White Dwarf as the whole Cryptech thing and Oricon, I'm apprehensive. I don't want to speculate too much, but I think the time shenanigans goes deeper than we'd think. I think perhaps an event happening soon in the Prior Nexus that ripples through time and space is maybe Vashtor becoming a Chaos God bona fide and getting maybe his own legion of Iron Men sent to kill him.
I would love to see a corrupted Men of Iron faction under Vashtor.
Dark Mech in general.
I was gonna
with
say
Men of Iron.
Chaos Admech.
Chaos Admech.
That would
Because
be
the Admech's probably, I don't know if it's the biggest faction on the Imperium side there, but it is definitely making up a whole ass stock of what is feeding Vashtor's current rise.
Yep.
So I don't know. And that's where that story left off. There was another Black Library story in there that dealt with this group of librarian chapter defending against an incursion from world leaders. That didn't seem to tie in directly to the Pride Nexus. But yeah, there have been issues since that one's come out. I've been looking for more references to the main story, but they kind of got off of it, and they're now working on new releases. I think the most recent White Dwarf kind of expounds upon the new book coming out for the Leagues of Votan. So I don't know when we'll get the next kind of round of Prime Nexus lore, especially if the release schedule for the show is kind of sporadic. I think the first season was a bit sporadic. But in the meantime, as far as books go, fellow Necron enjoyers like myself can look forward to a re-release of our best and only novels, the Twice Dead King trilogy and the Infinite and the Divine. They're getting a re-release. Pre-order comes up the next couple of weeks, I think, and they are re-vellumed in this beautiful, clean set of silver and gold plated covers. The Twice Dead King trilogy gets like a little box sleeve that they sit really nicely on your shelf, and I'm really looking forward to grabbing a set for me. If they come out before Christmas, I'm sure they will. They will be a great gift for any Necron player or Necron enthusiast. So I encourage you to take a look. Yeah.
I'll buy you one, Mark.
Oh, thanks, Bill.
two.
I appreciate it. I was holding out hope for a long time coming into the summer that, I hope that they'll release a new Necron model or something. But, the anniversary for Infinite Divine is coming up in October, and I'm hoping that they surprise us with a new model for Trazen because he is the best.
Oh, I love Trazen.
Trazen is amazing.
If you only ever read one 40k fantasy book, read Infinite and the Divine.
Very good. Very good. But yeah, that's pretty much what I got for current events going on the lore. I don't know if I'll have more of the same next week, so I might tie into different lore stuff happening or has happened. But
I'm sure hope you don't have it next week because we ain't recording next week.
Oh, this is true. I mean, 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks.
You've got 2 weeks.
2 weeks. You hear that, Games Workshop?
You got 2 weeks. Get it done. I mean, that's
so
about how long they take to write their balance notes, right?
We're going to try and wrap up this war by Christmas. That's all I'm going to say.
But I love it.
Said every person who's ever started a war ever.
This is a 3-day special military operation. That's where
just
we're
like
at
how the
right
Brits thought of World War One. We'll head off for a weekend of war and be back in time for golf.
That's right.
Okay, yeah. So the only other thing that I have on the agenda is Pilch was going to do a pinup pose, and
a pinup?
Yeah. Something that we can use as a reference for painting onto the side of all of our tanks.
Okay, hold on.
I was about to say, this is some
question for you guys.
Yes.
Now would be a good time to bring it up, I think, as any.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
How do you guys deal with painting burnout?
I've never been able to paint enough to get painting burnout.
I was gonna say, I feel like you're in the unique position of having a big enough backlog to experience that.
Well, no. So at the moment, I explain this to Merc, but I'll explain it to you right here.
Mhm.
I have 7 jackals left to paint before I start my World Eater Marines.
Mhm.
Jackals are World Eater specific cultists for everybody who doesn't know. They're human bodies, pretty generic, and I'm painting them in assembly line fashion. So they all get their pants done, they all get their shirts done, they all get, right? I hate it. And it makes me want to do horrible things to nice people.
I will state that I have never once in the history of all of the armies that I have painted, which is a very big number, as everyone in this chat can attest, done assembly line painting for that exact reason only. I take a little bit of time, I do one model, and then I do something else, because if I have to sit and paint the exact same part of a model, like in some cases, as you know, this is where I learned that I was never going to be a Tyranids player. In some cases, like 20 models, I would probably shoot the model and then myself rather than actually sitting through that. And so I learned through an immense amount of suffering that, if I needed to get an army done in a weekend, I could probably assembly line paint, but I was just never going to put myself in that position. Like, this is part of the reason that I wanted to do LVO all the way out to 2026, is I'm like, cool, I have 18 months longer when we started planning this to paint 7 models. I think I'll survive.
Yeah.
It's worth noting as well, like, part of my own approach, I do struggle with the painting side of things. I love the modeling side of things, and even though, like, a lot of the more modern kits, it's harder to do with than it used to be. Like, I'll use files and stuff to, like, you know,
Grease lines.
scratch down edges so I can, like, place the arm in a way that it's not, not generic. And I like to individualize every single model I have. And I mean, again, it depends on whether or not you're into that. But for me, like, each model has a lot of its own character. Even if I'm doing the same type of model, like if I'm doing, 2 squads or 4 squads of 4 intercessors, and they all come in the same poses and everything, like, I'll use a file to move stuff down so that I can adjust them.
Yeah.
Because for me, that gives them more character, and that makes me more interested in actually, like, thinking them as an individual character. And for me, like, getting into the game and into the narrative idea of the game is a big part of it. So I need to have that character in each of my models to really enjoy it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I haven't done like model painting myself, but I've done other painting, and maybe I'm just a chaotic person. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, and especially something that it's more of like a passion project, I never want to get sick of it. So I just do it when, and of course, yeah, like if you need to get it done on a timeline, this doesn't work. But honestly, approaching it with a little bit of chaos can be a lot more fun, because then you don't really hold yourself to such strict standards. You can just be like, okay, I'm just going to do the part that's the most appealing to me right now. Then you'll come back and do something different every time. That's at least just how I do it. I mean, everyone's different, but that is the most appealing for myself, so it doesn't get mundane.
Yeah. The other part of it for me too is that, and I'm on record saying this probably 100 times in our chat and in other places, but this kind of ties into my general philosophy around the game of, rules are temporary and models are forever. The army that taught me that I liked painting was Death Guard, because there's literally no such thing as 2 identical models in the Death Guard. Like, you paint a unit of Plague Marines and every model feels like a different model, because they're all in these funky poses and they've got different like stuff coming out of them. I'm like, hey, those are going to be teeth, and these are going to be guts, and these are going to be purple guts, and that fly is going to be blue. And it made things more interesting. And so now, having moved on to doing Chaos Knights, I mean, not that any of the podcast viewers have seen it, but you guys have seen all of the stuff that I'm doing with all my different knights. So
throw some pictures in the chat.
They're not done yet.
I mean, they're.
That's not
Hold
good
on.
enough.
You keep talking.
See, my issue is I do not foresee a problem with the actual berserkers. One, because as you've seen with the two that I've done, I enjoy painting them.
Yeah.
I think it's I wouldn't run I would not run jackals if it was a choice.
So what I would do in that circumstance then is I would reward yourself for painting. Like, let's say you've got, I don't know, how many berserkers do you have left to do?
17.
And how many
Yeah.
jackals do you have left to do?
7.
Okay. So paint 2 berserkers for every jackal that you paint. Like, do a jackal and then let yourself do a couple of models that you like. You gotta carrot on a stick yourself. I do that with
Mhm.
characters, right? Like, I've got to get through this unit of Hearthguard, for example, from when I was painting my Votan. And then I'm going to let myself paint that really cool new Grimnir that I just got. And he's going to be awesome. And I'm going to really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, if you like associating something that's a little bit more mundane, whether it's chores or, painting stuff that you're kind of just getting in a rut with, associating it with something that's like a reward system or something that you're going to enjoy, like, oh, this is my chance to listen to an audiobook, or I'm going to have this snack that I've been putting off. For me, I'm food
Or a
motivated.
cool new 40K
So-
podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So something like that, having a reward system is a great idea, or just associating it with something that you can like put else something like put something else in that you're like interested in. So yeah,
Sure,
having
yeah.
that is very important.
You gotta be careful. Don't do what I did. I
What did you do,
I slummed my way through 40 warriors, and I rewarded myself by buying more models.
That is a valid and correct outcome, and I will not be slandered in this way. All right.
No,
So-
yeah, absolutely.
I also think that my issue with the jackals is I have an Imperial Guard army and I'm tired of painting humans.
Yep.
So I'm wondering, like, my plan right now is to just take my time with the berserkers and then go back to the jackals.
I'm
But
Yeah,
maybe if
telling you,
burnout
sprinkle the
can be-
jackals into the berserkers. It'll feel a lot better.
Okay.
Take
Because I also still have, like, I did my Lord on Juggernaut. I have a Masters of Execution I have to do, and then an Angron, and then I don't have characters.
What about Lord Avocado?
Actually, I have a plan for him.
Yes.
That's
Um,
Is
just
he
you
gonna
got-
be
you
an
got-
avocado?
So one of my favorite things about this hobby is the stupid nicknames that we come up for stuff like Lord Avocado or the Juggalord or
Angry Ron.
Angry Ron.
Angry Ron. or Morty and the Stinky Boys. Like, there's so much potential.
My my plan for Lord Avocado is I'm gonna take remember a while ago Necromunda released bikers,
Yes.
Yeah.
the big giant tires and the spikes.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, he's gonna ride one of them.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I love
I
that.
wanna,
A
I
man
wanna
of
be a
taste, I
Amazon.
see.
Rather
And
than the charging mechanical bull.
Yeah, and then because it'll differentiate him from the other Lord on Juggernaut.
Mhm.
And then I was toying with the idea because I do like the new Blood Angel models that are coming out.
Nice.
Those are sweet.
I was
Agreed, I
toying
love them.
with the idea of once my codex drops, if I start to get more models like guys on jump packs, suddenly my Sanguinary Guard or Fallen Sanguinary Guard.
Mm, I'll take those.
It would be very cool conversions to see. I would be
Yeah.
very interested.
I'd be very
Right.
interested in getting that codex, see what the lore's in it. Too.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's going to be it for the fortress tonight. Anybody got any closing thoughts they want to share? Things that you got a call to action other than follow the podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your platform of choice. So far, we're on Spotify, Acast, and YouTube.
If you're interested, I know that Ryan will be. I believe the tournament that we care about, it's coming in November. It's the narrative series. They're running 2 concurrent events. One in, I think, England, and then one in Atlanta, Georgia. I
Correct.
think that-
Atlanta and Warhammer World in Nottingham.
So I'll be very. I will. I would love to look forward to talking about that more sometime. More for some people's gameplay experience, more their speed, less competitive, more fluffiness, and those missions are really cool. Also, Kill Team is a thing we could talk about sometime.
Yes, new edition coming out. Worth noting also that last year's World Narrative Tournament resulted in Vashtor the Archfane getting his hands on a Dark Age of Technology AI.
Yeah. So who knows what happened this time?
Yeah.
Excited.
Awesome. Well, with that, we're gonna bring the this episode of the Fortress to a close. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for listening and for giving us your attention for a couple hours. We'll be back 2 weeks from now. This is a bi-weekly podcast. If you have things that you want, you can email us blackstonefortresspodcast@gmail.com. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. Thank you for being here.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.